Welcome to Epicenter, the hub of innovation in the heart of Helsinki, where ideas come to life and creativity thrives, where innovation meets community. Get ready to learn, network, and make an impact. Let's go.
All right, let's go. Let's give a round of applause. Come on. Let's get the energy going. I don't know if you recognize, but that's my voice. No, it's not. It's not. I also don't do voiceover work. Hey, welcome to Epicenter. How are you today? Look at the goosebumps. We are already doing interactive activities. Amazing. Hey, as many of you know, I am Joey, who is the head of community here at Epicenter Helsinki. And we have a bit of a tradition, which I think that you already know right now because you're already sort of coming back at me with great energy. So in order to set the tone and to make everyone feel super comfortable, we take the first 10 seconds of each event and we just go wild and we clap. And we scream and we hoot and we holler. It makes me feel like I'm back on 46th Street in Manhattan, listening to my neighbors. I do these once a week, so I have to come up with a new joke each time I'm up here. So hey, let's take the first 10 seconds and clap. Please go. Yeah. We got a little whoop whoops. All right, we love a rowdy crowd. Okay, so hey, again, welcome to Epicenter Helsinki. We are a community and a meeting arena for local change makers to accelerate their growth and innovate with impact. Epicenter is not just a hub, but a testament to the power of community. And communities, we know, are more than just proximity. They are networks of shared ideas, dreams, and aspirations that drive us forward. So thank you all so much for being here today. And so before I begin, I want to thank my partner for today, Mixx Reality, which is a Helsinki-based XR startup building the future experience of the web for today with an open, inclusive, and individual respecting focus. And to the Helsinki XR Center, which is a leading hub in Europe that connects startups, industries, innovators, students, professionals, investors for co-creation, new business, and talent building. So let's give a huge hand to both of those for their expertise being shared today. So hey, welcome to into the Metaverse. This is a monthly series here at Epicenter Helsinki where we've covered topics like digital fashion, marketing in the Metaverse, the societal impact, and so much more. Tonight we are going to discuss mixed reality. So imagine a world where our physical surroundings blend seamlessly with digital elements, enabling us to live and work in spaces that are enhanced by technology. We'll start this evening with two keynote addresses. The first will explore the convergence of the built environment, web, and real world. And our second keynote will jump into AI and digital identity and privacy. This will pave the way for our panel discussion where we'll discuss the challenges and opportunities in the mixed reality future. And if that wasn't enough, lastly, we're going to invite you to stick around for a few demos and technology provided by the XR Center and run by a volunteer who where is he? Don't hide. Right here, this is our guy. He's gonna run the VR headset there. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what to do when we get to that portion. And as you know, I'm Joey, and we don't do last names here. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I can't pronounce Finnish last names. Okay, that was a good one. I'll put that in my little diary. Okay, are we ready to begin? Oh, I can't lose you now. We still have about 45 minutes of content, but we're ready to begin? Yeah. All right, awesome. So the convergence of the built environment, web technologies, and the real world is laying the groundwork for a future where digital and physical experiences seamlessly intertwine. With the advent of 5G connectivity, spatial computing, and the advancements in sensor technology, we are witnessing the birth of a new reality where information is no longer confined to screens, but seamlessly integrated into our surroundings. Our first speaker has worked many years, and in many areas of interactive 3D, web, and XR industries as a designer, developer, advisor, speaker, entrepreneur, investor, executive that has been active in the virtual environments, the 3D web, and other metaverse-related technologies for over 20 years. He is passionate about the web's convergence with other technologies and advises a variety of entities that use these technologies for enterprise-focused applications. Since 2007, he has been working closely with various built environment professions on the adaptation and the use of innovative technologies. And that was just a bit of what he does. So let's please welcome to the stage Damon, who is a CEO and co-founder of Mixx Reality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And this is yours.
Super. All right. Oh, this is actually perfect because I can't see anybody. The lights really help. All right. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming this evening. As Joey said, I am super passionate about what I'm going to talk about, and it's something that I've been working on for quite some time. So just a real quick show of hands from what I can see. How many people are familiar with the Metaverse technologies? Okay, how many of you have worked in the space? How many of you have worked in the space for more than 10 years? Okay, there we go. All right, so hopefully some of this will be new for you then. All right. So as Joey said, I'm going to talk about 3 different elements that are really passionate to me. One is the web, 2 is reality, and then the other is the built environment sector. And so with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. So for one, I have been an advocate specifically for the metaverse for quite some time. The book Snow Crash I read in '99, and it literally changed my life. I changed my career and what I'd been focused on for quite some time since a little guy from wanting to be a lawyer to the current field that I'm in now. So I'm very passionate about this. And I've been blogging as Metaverse One and YouTube for quite some time. So if you want to go and see a much younger version of Damon that traveled the world and interviewed people, I would definitely say feel free to check out my YouTube channel there. And then I've been talking very much about how the built environment sector relates to the metaverse, and essentially this combination, right, of the real world, the digital, how that can interact with gaming and things like that. Not only from SIGGRAPH here at 2008, but also at Stanford in 2008. So again, I have had the opportunity to be a big advocate and very passionate about this for quite some time. Now, most people got exposed to the metaverse when Zuckerberg announced what he did, and when NFTs, crypto, and other things came into the equation. And I love this example because I think that it really tells a lot of what was happening, is that there were a lot of those of us who worked in various different tribes of the metaverse, let's call it, right? Like the natives. We were in AI, Web 3D, or whatever. And then media came over, discovered this small little area that was very new for even those of us who were in this space, right? NFTs, cryptos, blockchain, went back and then told the world, hey, this is what the new world is. And so I got this very funny association with things that are still kind of unproven, but are very much a proven technology because they've been around for decades. And then, of course, it was funny to see how many experts arised, and then how in 2023 there were all these like announcements of the metaverse is dead, right? Somehow on LinkedIn, everyone went from being a metaverse expert to an AI expert pretty quickly, and knowing that it's 10,000 hours, as they say, to become an expert in something, that's roughly around, 80 hours a week and about 2 years in order to do it. So it was funny to see how quickly that happened on LinkedIn. So, but as I feel that all the world is a stage. And so actually taking what Zuckerberg shared, because how many of you in this room saw that announcement that he made? No one saw that. Okay, thank you for the hands that went up. All right, so for those that didn't, they outlined a world that had collaboration across many different verticals, right? And what's interesting about all of these is that they somehow related to the real world, right? You had people that were in the digital space playing with those in the real world. You had those that were, again, sitting down somewhere, collaborating with somewhere else. So this blending of reality with a mixed reality was apparent even in what Zuckerberg was talking about. But all of this has to do with a spatial location, right? We don't know where the young lady is who's playing ping pong with the other friend. If you don't know where they are, this is not possible. The gentleman that's playing chess with the other man in the park, if we don't know where they are, this is not possible, as is with that other example. So the idea of this component of reality and spatial, it mixes. And then when it comes to the web, it's actually been here for quite some time. And this has been developed by a lot of the different standards groups that I won't go into because it would bore you. And working with them, while fun and exciting for those that aren't passionate about it, it's more fun to watch grass grow. And but this is very much that combination of the real world and the digital. And so to tell you a little bit of a story, so around 2008, a group of people got together and said, hey, if the metaverse turns out like it does in the book or Ready Player One, we have failed, right? And I feel that same way too. If we live in a world where everyone's in virtual reality, we failed miserably, okay? Because it's not about escapism, it's about how do we enhance the real world? How do we enhance life? And so they expanded upon the definition of what of what Neil Stevenson and Snow Crash actually created, and they divided it up into more sections. They included virtual worlds, which is what you hear a lot of, okay? Roblox, Fortnite, all of these are virtual worlds, okay? These are not, and people like to call them metaverses. It's cute, but it's wrong. They're virtual worlds. And so these virtual worlds, then they also connected it to augmented reality. Life logging, which back in the day they didn't know, now we call this social media, all right? And then also mirrored worlds, which is the area that I've focused in as a person who's dealt a lot with enterprise verticals. And then I would, this report is no longer online, but it did kind of dive into this. And so that's what, again, we're gonna talk about here is this formation of the digital copy of the built environment sector is one. And then adding real-time data, archival data, because a digital twin is what now this becomes. A digital twin is not a copy. A digital twin is something that has intelligence, right? It's not just polygons. It's data, archival and historic and real-time. And for those that are interested, I highly encourage that this QR code here scan, or if you just type in Tony Parisi and the 7 rules of the metaverse, this is a great example coming from the person who essentially invented Web 3D, right? So if you see 3D in a browser, Sketchfab, Google Maps, it doesn't matter. This is the gentleman who developed it. And he recently was the chief strategy officer at Lamina One, which is Neil Stevenson's company. Neil Stevenson is the guy who wrote the book Snow Crash, right? So I would say, while there are some experts out there, go with what the OGs say, right? And see what they have to really make sure that you've got the right idea of what all of these technologies are and where they're heading. Now, going to the web, it's a very exciting time, right? The thing that's fun about the web is that all you need is a browser to access things. What you're going to see with the demos over here are one virtual world, Mozilla Hubs, that is running across multiple devices, okay? And I'll share a little bit more about how that works. And so what's fun is that we can leverage the web is already everywhere. I hear people say all the time, and even yesterday, what is the metaverse good for? Change that word out. What is the web good for? How do you use the web? How has the web impacted every industry that exists? Now switch out the word metaverse. It shouldn't be that hard of a sell or something to understand. And so, to me, immersive is more about having something strapped to your face, right? It is about IoT. When we walk into buildings and things like this, how those motion sensors pick us up, how it'll change the lights. This is immersion as well. And all of this is done through the internet, right? And the web. So recent advancements in web technologies have allowed for the ability for you to have 3D in the mobile browser, 3D on your or an AR, and then also VR and also in some mixed reality headsets. So the barrier to entries are dropping, right? And now, for those that are familiar with the game engines and say, well, hey, I develop XR, and it doesn't look as good on the web as it does in the game engines, you're right. But the difference is that you have to change your pipelines. So it can. It just changes how you do these things. And then, of course, quite surprisingly, that was spearheaded by Google out of all people, was this concept of progressive web apps. You're going to be seeing a lot more of these coming out in the next few years. And essentially, this is a website that looks like an app, acts like an app, and can run offline. Okay? Have the home screen and everything else. Why? Because this is important for me, because I want you to have an experience that you can access by clicking an icon. What I do not want to do is have you not want to download my app, and then I put my app on your phone, and I am harvesting all the data that I want to off of your application, off of your phone, right? So from a sense of privacy and security, progressive web apps are great. And then also in countries where they're not as privileged as we are to have unlimited Wi-Fi and mobile connectivity, it also helps for making sure that that footprint is as light as possible to still deliver that experience. Because let's be honest, the mobile device is going to be how people in most of the world experience the metaverse for decades. If we think it's going to be VR headsets or AR headsets, we're very privileged to think so, and that's not reality. So, moving along, this is about as geeky as I'm going to get tonight, but for those that want to know, this shows how from proprietary vendors and that are doing both from city scale to also building scale and reality capture data, how this can go into that 3D environment of the real world, right? And this creates experiences where, again, people can use the browser to not only have these experiences of browser-based 3D, AR, and VR experiences, but then you can have multi-device experiences. When I was at Samsung Research, I was very fortunate to be able to work on projects to where we were saying, hey, this is what something looks like on the phone, the tablet, or the desktop, but how does that look like if I actually sync these things together? How does that display on my watch now fan out? How can I pop things out of my phone because of the AR glasses, right? Interfaces that we've only seen in Iron Man, but are totally possible, and not just possible, but possible through the web. So moving on, the spatial web is here. And then this is how it's being done, is by being put together by a variety of different 3D formats. And again, some of these I did make a little bit more technical for people who are in the audience to understand. These are essentially model formats for 3D geometry. Some of them are just polygons, and actually some of them have the metadata in them for applications where it's applicable and makes sense. And so these are the things that I would say, to help the others out. I kind of mentioned earlier, what the metaverse is still remains to be identified, right? No one knows what it is. That's why I don't believe that anyone's an expert. But what we do know is that it's about interconnected experiences, all right? And if you want to know if someone's using it right, if they say they're building a metaverse, then that usually means they are talking about something that has to do with internet, web, or communications infrastructure protocols or others. Nokia is building out components of the metaverse, right? But if you're building a virtual world, you're building the equivalent of a website, not the internet, all right? So let's make sure that as we go forward, we're using these terms correctly, all right? And now you can say that you know. And then in conclusion, as I wrap up my time, this impacts every domain. And this is very important, especially for here in Finland. I would love to see, as Finland goes toward being a metaverse country, it integrated into everything. Because just like the internet and the web have added value to every industry that exists, this too, the metaverse can also. Our augmented reality started with the smartphone, right? If you want to know what reality's like, leave your phone at home one day. That's reality. It's true. So we've lived in an augmented reality for quite some time. The immersive web is here, and Finland is primed and moving forward towards being the first metaverse country, I feel, with the initiatives that they're doing, like with the National Metaverse Strategy Initiative and Tampere's Metaverse Vision. So this mixed reality is here. Just please get engaged. And with that, thank you very much, and go out and be the future that you want to see.
Let's give Damon a huge round of applause. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Damon is going to join us back for the panel discussion that we have. But Today, the word metaverse immediately conjures up glasses, headset, digital world, and potentially disruptive and lucrative. We play ways we live, play, and business. However, with great potential or disruption comes great potential for danger and abuse, unintentional or otherwise. To talk about this and more is a serial tech entrepreneur. His professional interest falls squarely at the intersection of responsible and ubiquitous AI, evolving cybersecurity and identity privacy practices, and the messy process of reality convergence. In his downtime, you might run into him randomly in natural liminal places, communing with the land and her denizens. I had to read it. You gave it to me and I had to put it there. Okay, let's please welcome to the stage George, who is the co-founder of Mixx Reality.
Thank you, Joey.
Thank you so much, sir. And this is for you.
Okay. It's really nice to see everyone, many of whom I know. And this is really quite incredible, given that before last August, I've never been to Helsinki, so welcome everyone. And for the next 15 minutes, and I will try to keep it to 15, because this subject area can be an entire college semester of talks. So today it is my objective and my goal to talk about the metaverse, but really from a perspective more of, are we really ready for this? Are we really ready for the metaverse that we keep on investing money into, that we work on, that we are trying to bring about in reality? So my talk, AI, digital identity, and privacy. How many people are working on one of these fields specifically? Okay, a little bit less than people who are working on the metaverse, but would it be surprising for you to know that these are all aspects of the metaverse? If we want to implement the metaverse, we must get these things right. Or really, this is the visual version of what my talk is really about. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And with any talk that really engages the audience, and I hope this is a fully engaged audience as we move on into the panel, I'm going to open with some fighting words. 1, the metaverse, it is already here. 2, are we ready? Hell no. And 3, the shortest road to dystopia is paved with trusting the experts and the powers that be. I'm going to repeat that again. If you trust the experts to do it right, we're going right into the dystopia. And hey, I am an expert. I am Tuija Tang, and sometimes, and most of you know me as George. I'm the co-founder of Mixx Reality. I'm also a giant nerd. My areas of focus, as Joey has already pointed out, AI, cybersecurity, and privacy, and future of the web. And I work on the Trust over IP group, my data, and I'm also a CISSP. I think a lot about cybersecurity and privacy. And the thing that I am most proud of is that I am a 90-day Fin in 2022. And now I am a Fin for a long time. Let's talk about the metaverse. What is your immediate association? And by the way, this is actually a test for the audience. Do you think of this? Does anybody know what this is? What is it? Yeah. It's an interface to trick your senses from way back in the day. Or maybe you think of this. I think most people today would probably associate this, and actually we have some setup over there that you can experience a little bit later on. But really, the emotional reaction we have is actually this, right? What are all these things I'm wearing? Where are all these wires sticking out of me? Or perhaps, anybody know what this is? Is this what you think of when you think of the metaverse? A virtual world? Anybody know what this is? Except for Damon. This is Second Life. And obviously, I think most people are probably pretty comfortable in conceptualizing the metaverse in the following manner. But really, you really feel on a gut level like this, where it's technology and you don't quite understand what's going on and why you have to do it this way, and you struggle. Anybody know what this movie is? This is an age test. Not you, Damon. You're always excluded from these questions. This is Lawnmower Man, back in the 90s, when we just first started the Hollywood version of virtual worlds. But really, if you think about it, we've been trying to work on better ways of experiencing information in ever higher spatial dimensions, and today we also include temporal dimension for over half a century, all the way from line dot printers going from line to line serial to 2D interfaces like your CRT screens, rendering 3D games on those 2D screens, and then now getting devices that are going to be able to render in 3D and near real time. Have you ever seen these figures before on pitch decks about the metaverse? The global metaverse market is supposed to account for, by the year 2023, US $1.3 trillion. But my reaction to that is, error, does not compute. How? How is this possible? Where is the value? Are we missing something? Are we missing the big picture? Where is this value? And who knows about this value to invest this much money into the metaverse? Are we missing the trees, mistaking to be looking for the trees for the forest, right? What is the big picture? And here, generally, is when people start popping up definitions of the metaverse. And there are as many definitions of the metaverse as there are people trying to profit from the metaverse. Everybody's trying to define what this term means so that they can corner their very own definition of the market sometime in the future and create that vision. So therefore, I'm going to add my own to that. But there's a purpose to that. I actually like to frame my discussion around this particular definition. And very similarly to Damon, I like to actually start with a short version. The best way to conceptualize the metaverse from a metaverse as a convergence of many different technologies, many different policies, is the future of the web. It's really quite simple. And my personal definition is the evolution, metastable near future state of the web. And the web is the key word here. As a direct outcome of the interaction with technology, policy, and agreed upon values, and this is really, really important, of all of its participants. Better suited to solving today's problem, not tomorrow's problem, today's problem, than what we have today. So this is an ever-shifting, ever-evolving definition of what the metaverse is. So, in order to understand where the value is between the conceptualization of $1.3 trillion by 2023 and what most people are conceptualizing metaverse is, we really need to kind of get an idea of what the experts are actually talking about right now, to get an idea where they're putting their time and money into, because that's what's really going to generate the value, especially for the big companies. And everything I'm going to be talking about now is science fact, not science fiction. And because we only have 15 minutes, and this can be an entire semester of material, we're going to be focusing on 3 issues: privacy, AI, and digital identity. Let's talk about privacy. I really like to highlight 2 very recent studies within the past year and a half. That is based on a study that is done by the University of Berkeley, California, based on telemetry data coming out of Beat Saber, which is I think the best-selling VR game currently on Steam. In Beat Saber, you're essentially chopping to the rhythm of a song as things are flying at you. So there's some head movement where you're tracking objects, and you're also moving your arms in order to interact with the environment, with the blocks that are coming at you. Okay, so the first study I'd like to point out is the unique identification of 50,000 plus virtual reality users from head and hand motion data. I actually heard this presented by the guy who headed the lab But I'm going to present a very short digest of this, and that is analyzing 2.5 million VR data recordings from nearly 50,000 players. We are now able to, using nothing but the data that's coming out of Beat Saber, to 94%, with 94% accuracy identify someone using 100 seconds of motion data. But half of all users can be identified within 2 seconds. And this is motion data only. And the much more disturbing version of this study, or actually a separate study, so aptly titled, Inferring Private Personal Attributes of Virtual Reality Users from Head and Hand Motion Data. Okay? Wow, sounds really like a paper. But let's point out what's actually important. Using nothing but telemetry data, we are able to derive some personal attributes. And what are some of the most interesting ones on that list of 40 that can easily and accurately, consistently be able to be picked out? Country, age, marital status, employment status, ethnicity, income, substance use, sex, political orientation, from nothing more than telemetry data of hand movement and head movement. And now we are thinking to ourselves, are we ready for the metaverse? If we had one such device, think Apple Vision Pro, or any VR device that are coming out that is the next generation with more sensors, following are the things that they're going to be able to know about you, and probably are already collecting in some way, shape, or form with existing devices that you are all carrying around or wearing right now. And with this, do you think they're going to be able to infer something about you that potentially you don't even know about yourself? And how are they doing all of this, right? AI. With the assistance of AI, we are now able to process so much data and turn that into almost near real-time meaning. And sometimes we are even able to push the computation of this right to your device, and for the digest to be reported back to home base. Do you think that the big companies are thinking about not getting that data and being able to do something with it? How are we doing on time, Joey? Okay. So with AI, in the conversation that I always have with people, the latest version of AI, what it's actually really good for, what it actually is a funny. Think of a fun mirror that you see when you go to like a circus, where it distorts your image. You're moving around, you see it moving around, and it's reacting to your movement, and you almost can believe that it's real. Except it can be skinned. It can take on other personality. It is the averaging of all the answers that it knows about, that it's been trained on. But the one thing that we've always been able to count on as human beings is the ability to tell ourselves apart, one person from another, or tell a machine apart from a person, right? That's just not true anymore. In fact, it hasn't been true for a long time. We can see this by the targeted phishing attacks that we're increasingly are being targeted by each and every one of us, that are getting more specific and more effective. So what do we need to be worried about, right? And this is a very quick overview, but the one that is being talked about the most is LLMs being combined with generative AI to yield interactive deepfakes. Deepfakes that can actually take on the look, feel, sound of a personality and respond appropriately to natural language prompts. And that is coming soon to a SaaS near you. Which leads us to the issue of digital identity. So now we can't even tell if something that's interacting with us is real, is a person, is a company, is an authority, is a nation state, or even an artificial agent. How do we trustlessly certify personhood? And what does personhood mean in the context of interaction, in the way that we know about each other and trust one another? And even if we have to trust, how do we verify it? And oh boy, if we combine all of those concerns together, the nothing to see here is what the big companies really want you to think. They're not really doing anything. There's really nothing happening there. But I can promise you, there's a great deal of papers and great deal of projects that are currently going on that are all about the manipulation of not only your behavior, but also the real-time gathering of that data. Imagining yourself being turned into an IoT device, and not only can they control what's being fed down to you in near real time, they are also now able to affect your behavior in near real time. So you're no longer a product, you're more like an IoT device that they can run on the edge. And actually the same mechanisms of control actually works for humans, and quite well, actually, as we now know. So once again, we return to the original definition that I advanced, because I have to add one, just like everybody else. The future web is really the short version, but let's really take a look at this statement right here and what's important. Evolutionary, metastable near future state of the web. It is the web. It is something that we already know. It is not new. We are simply coming up with new ways of talking about it. We are coming up with new sets of values and the policies that match those values so that we can implement this solution, this version of the web, to better solve today's problems that we're having problem solving right now. And if it does not fit this definition, you should ask yourself, why not? My phone tells me I should stop talking. And with that, I leave you. Thank you very much. I know that there are probably many questions coming out of that very provocative talk, I guess. And you will have a chance to speak with all of us on this subject matter or all the related subject matters on the upcoming panel. Thank you.
Perfect. Let's give George a huge round of applause. You're going to stay with us if you'd like to have a seat. Okay. Oof. And that was perfect. 15 minutes. Boom. It goes fast. Okay. How are we doing? Was that a lot to take in? Yeah? Okay. Cool. So, oh, awesome. Thank you. That was going to be my next thing to say. To round out the panel, we've invited a geographer who works as a lead in substantial built environment at VTT. Her goal is to study directions in which technological research for a sustainable built environment should navigate in Finland. Previously, she acted as a senior specialist at the Ministry of the Environment in the Raiti project. Project. You see, that's why I don't do Finnish names, guys. Building and designing the National Information System for the built environment. Currently, she is engaged in examining impacts of immersive digital technologies on the built environment and exploring how the future of working changes our everyday life and our physical built environment. Please help me welcome to the stage Tuija, who is the lead sustainable built environment at VTT. You'd sit there.
Kiitos. Oh, thanks. He always stands up when a girl's one comes in the room. I can't. Oh.
Gentlemen. Okay, so as the boundaries between our physical world and our digital world blur, it is crucial to navigate the challenges, opportunities, and implications that come with this convergence. Today, with our distinguished panelists, we're going to delve into questions of accessibility, ethics, architecture, and ownership, offering insights that aim to shape a new reality that is inclusive, secure, and beneficial for all. How does that sound?
Sounds ambitious.
How does that sound? Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So we're going to start here. So thank you all so much for being here today. As we've witnessed, the harmonization of digital and physical experiences certainly concern emerge. What are the primary concerns we should be addressing as we step further into the mixed reality landscape?
Who starts?
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
That's not an excuse anymore. Old-fashioned. But I think actually, I think that the inclusiveness is one of the biggest issues. That how do we take into account those who don't have access to these VR classes, who don't have ability to see, or who have disabilities in general, or elderly people who don't use any kind of digital devices. So I say inclusiveness is one of the bottlenecks.
Yeah, I would, just staying on theme of the built environment for my talk, I would say it's privacy, right? I think there's no respect for people in that digital domain. For example, Niantic throws Pokemon wherever they want. And so do y'all want kids running in here, in and out, collecting Pokemon, disrupting your people? No. So I see it as really in privacy of space. Could be also an issue from my thought.
From my perspective, it's both cultural and mental. We need to stop thinking of the digital world as being separate from the physical space. But the way that we have to do that is starting to think about exactly how do we liberate data out of their respective silos, and being able to now combine them back together to really reflect the richness that is everything about this space right here has data associated, and yet we can't go somewhere and actually look at it all together. And that is a major barrier to actually the adoption and the uniting and the convergence of the physical and the digital space, and has been since the beginning. And I think our challenge is to figure out the transition plan between how we're doing things in the Web 2 kind of way, which is walled gardens and silos, and how to begin to jailbreak all of the data. But more importantly, to change people's minds about where that data resides. Data belongs to the person, data belongs to the building, data belongs to owners, data belongs to organizations. And the correction of where that data sits and how we conceptualize and move that data really is the beginnings of how we're going to really start to change convergence.
Well, let's jump into there. So let's talk about the ethical implications, right? So with the rise of technologies intertwining our realities, ethical issues, especially around data and privacy, become more pressing, notably in the GDPR era. So how can we ethically navigate data handling, privacy, and security concerns in the metaverse?
Yeah, well, I mean, one way I think is that the responsibility is of the hardware and software owners, right? I sit on the board of a group called XR Guild, which I highly advocate. If anyone here wants to be involved in the conversation around ethics for immersive technologies, plug xrguild.org. And what this was is a group of individuals that have some weight. They've been in the industry for a few decades. That said, let's come together and help the product managers and device makers at Meta, Pico, all these places really look at, am I building this with ethics as a pillar, right, at the forefront? So in one way, the onus is on the developers of the hardware and software to really take a different stance, I feel, than what normally has been done, where it's just build product. And coming from the US, the one thing I can say is I always like how EU regulates, the US punishes when it comes to these things, right? But I think that needs to change. And I remember being in Silicon Valley, how GDPR changed the way that a lot of what we did over there, it restructured. So I look always to Europe and then to the Nordics to set that precedent for the rest of the world, personally.
I have to add on that always when you harvest, you get a pile of, basket of apples, but some of them are always rotten. And you cannot trust only that all the companies have the conscience in mind that we are doing by the book and we are doing by the ethics. We also have to ask whose ethics it is.
Very true.
And I think that it's also very important to mention that, for example, EU is now regulating, is drafting opinions from different EU countries to make an act on AI. And Finland submitted their opinion in June, I think, or June, July. And most likely it's going to be forbidding lots of it. And I think it's something that could be interesting to kind of examine a little bit more once it comes into force, that how it can be extrapolated regarding also immersive technologies.
And to sort of leapfrog from your perspective, I think it is really important for everyone to show up at the table when it comes to the discussion around ethics. If you're the only one around the table, then it is your ethics that you're coming to agreement to. Everyone needs to come to the table, and therefore this, as my challenge, is really a challenge for all of you, but everyone as well who is interested in knowing how ethics can affect them, not just in the metaverse, not just in AI, but in general ethics as we're moving into these very troubled times, is that more people need to show up to the table and come to an agreement about what is the minimum set of ethics that we can all agree to, and then start there in terms of policy, start there in terms of our actionable ethics, which is our support for particular products, holding companies responsible, and also individually, right, acting in a way that supports those ethics. And only then, and only then can we begin to cause the kind of cultural shift that really supports the kind of change that we're looking for, not just in technology, but in every aspect where ethics is really at the heart of the discussion.
Yeah. Well, I think the conversation of ethics leads me to sort of inclusivity, which you mentioned as one of the concerns. And so, with the rise of technologies intertwining, a key challenge in the design of the metaverse is its heavy reliance on visuals, right? Which may exclude neurodivergent. Those who are neurodivergent, blind, and even deaf individuals. So how can we ensure that the metaverse is inclusive and accessible for everyone, irrespective of their physical or cognitive abilities? And we talked about the barrier of entry, right, being lowered with cell phones, and but how else can we? Yeah.
Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I'll start. We can start by getting out of the moving average paradigm and really start to get into inclusive and modular ways of exposing the same sort of space, same sort of experiences, using all senses to start. And this is only to address sensory differences. But also, as we get more sophisticated with AIs acting as agents for us, we can also start to use AIs to mediate many of these differences on scale, right? Not just individually, you need to know to do the following in order to apply some of these issues, to be able to have that experience customized to you, but customized to you in a way that take into account your specific differences. And that is actually something that is a positive and very encouraging way of looking at technology such as AI and Metaverse, where the concept itself is generic, but the experience can be customized to quite the almost down to entirely human, personal degree. And I believe that is the right use of technology when it comes to inclusiveness, but only the use of technology, limited to that.
Well, I would say also it's about having more of the people at the table, right? I mean, a lot of the experiences. I mean, again, this goes back to when a lot of people think metaverse, they think VR, AR. A lot of VR, AR is from game engine publishers, right? I look at VR, AR creatives as people who I can push Notepad to and say, build the system from the ground up. A lot of the game engines are done by gamers. A lot of gamers in the industry are male. So it's like you don't pay attention to where the handicap ramps are until you have a broken leg and you're using crutches. And so I think that in one way, it's having more people at the table from developers that do represent those parties, right? To say, this is what's needed. Otherwise, again, one doesn't think about it, you know? We don't know what we don't know. And so I think it's about having a diverse table of people that are developing the metaverse.
I have to agree on that, and I had a couple examples on. I think that first of all, putting a lot of effort on research, inviting people and from different backgrounds on the same table. A like good example of like not including different kind of backgrounds is the crash test dummy female version was published this year. So all the crash test dummies have always been male so far. So all the cars work in physics of male. So isn't it dumb that half of the population have been kind of neglected? Or the other version is a good idea. Is have you ever heard about the Be My Eyes app?
No.
Which is a not anonymous app for blind people to join. So you can actually call and say, okay, I need somebody's eyes to tell me what's going on. So they can be in a traffic and they can say that, okay, where am I? Can you tell me, am I here? Or having very sensitive, intimate discussions, like for intimate situations like pregnancy test. You're looking at it and you're saying, okay, this is a result I didn't want to have. Can somebody have it told to me anonymously? So they can call. A blind person can call and say, can you tell me the result of this test? And they're like, oh, okay. Their personal information, and it's very inclusively thought. And this is actually, I think it was a Norwegian app, and it was just because the founder's brother was blind, and it was because they invited the people on the same table.
We've talked, you've mentioned Pico and Oculus, so this leads me to the ownership aspect. So notable platforms like Pico and Oculus are owned by major social media corporations, raising concerns, especially given geopolitical considerations. So what are the implications of major social media companies, including those from regions like China, owning and controlling significant portions of our data and the metaverse?
They are.
They are.
That's just what we need to. Anyone who thinks that it's anything else is naive. When you walk over to that table and put on that Oculus, you know, well, now no one's going to do it because they know from George. But y'all didn't know we were going to do that to y'all tonight. Joey needed some metrics on the audience. But I think that is the reality, right? And I think that's also the opportunity for others, right, like Varios and those that, you know, can say, hey, you are not the product, right? But, you know, in our metaverse strategy thing yesterday for Finland, I also kind of asked this question to someone from Meta and kind of got a workaround, you know, answer. So when you are the product, that's just what's happening. And let's be honest, and they're not going to change their business model. They make too much money. The bigger concern is not when it's a company that's trying to say, how do I get information from you to influence you, as much for me as when it's a country that says, I want to get information about you to build profiles about you, and then that can also use that to keep people in check wherever they are, right? So this is an issue, but I think in that it does open it up for opportunity for those that are making devices that can also do those same things.
Yeah, to get creative, guys. We are all here to really try to solve these problems. There's no easy answer. It is literally the way that it is done today. But in there is all of the opportunities. At Mixed Reality, we very much believe this. The opportunity is in the transition. It's not in the endpoint. And to actually think about how to leverage current models of ownership and yet still make useful uses of that data, all the while bridging the gap between a sense of ownership of your own data, is how that transition begins. That's how you get people to believe that this is actually something that is possible, and then they will begin to say to themselves, are there technologies, are there solutions, are there policies that supports this sort of decentralized ownership of data, where data actually ends up in the places where they're naturally supposed to be. And it's all about that transition of believability. Today, a lot of people have just said, I give everything away. But that's because they don't know that there are alternatives out there and there are ways to transition out of it. It's just that no one has really spent too much time thinking about how to transition. So the opportunity is in the transition, in my opinion.
Well, and just real quick, another thing that I want to touch on that is that I really get tired of people, the excuse of saying, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't care if they collect this, right? But I think it's in that education of knowing, again, what can be inferred, what can be understood, that if people really understood that, it's not well, I don't mind. I don't mind if they're listening to everything that I say, so they pop me up an ad that says, you know, go to Hawaii. It's everything else, right? Even in our office, we found that, you know, if I told you we're going to put a device that goes around and monitors what you're doing, listens to everything that you says, uses visual identification of who you are, you would say, no way. Amazon did it. They called it Astro. They put big cutesy eyes on it, and everyone loves it, right? So if anyone here is looking for any kind of espionage or spy devices, just make it look super cute with your eyes, and people will gobble it up all day long.
That is so true. Yeah, and that evokes feelings that it's cute, or I could like it, pet it, or something like that. It also makes it very acceptable. I mean, you can use it as a good thing as well. You know, how to make technology acceptable. But once you think about it in that point of view, you think about a quite dangerous machine, actually.
Exactly.
But I have to say about this, about the geography. Well, I'm a geographer, so I have to take that one of the topics. But being a citizen in European Union is a wonderful thing, even though it's damn bureaucratic system. But it's all the rules are made for protection. So there is no similar kind of discussion going on anywhere in the world than we have in the European Union. Like lots of the different kind of countries with their own governments are collaborating and thinking, okay, it's not okay to observe my kids and I would like to protect them. So isn't it like, of course you have to do it, but no other countries or continents are doing it. So basically, because we have these laws and because we are so bureaucratic and we are kind of making things so difficult, then we have to also invest on our own development. So basically we should actually pour a lot of money on the development and research, what we do in EU, to make it by our rules.
Well, let's talk about property rights, because we've mentioned that a little bit, and especially in the built environment. So as digital overlays become commonplace in physical spaces, the rights of property owners become a crucial topic. And so what can we do to ensure that the rights of physical property owners are respected in the digital realm, and how do we exercise control over the digital counterparts?
Do you want to start?
Well, I mean, from an American answer, I'd say sue. If I put a big phallic symbol in front of Epicenter, it's geolocated there, and then I put a QR code. Anyone can scan and see, that. It's tough, right? It's tough, and I think again, no one cares until it impacts you, right? But I think that is the issue, that is the problem. So what I would like to see, and some people have proposed this, so in the W3C, so in the World Wide Web working consortium, there was someone who proposed this idea of essentially building owners would be able to create and submit for a dead space. So kind of think of it as a cease and desist of your plot, right? Because just like I can't come and stick something on your building without your permission, I should not be able to digitally do that as well. So there are folks that are starting to go that way. I think that it's just, there needs to be more maybe policies or people that are saying, hey, if this does happen, at least you can submit something like a cease and desist to say, hey, Niantic or whomever, I opt out. Don't put this here. Because when people say, oh, but it brings business to a store, look at the amount of disruption that it causes toward the amount of actual business that it brings to the store, then see, what that is. But I think they're just, again, the rights of a property owner should be both for the real space and the digital.
And are there any cases that have sort of been legislated and that will protect, do we know?
None that I know of yet, because it hasn't been a big enough of an issue. Now, of course, there are people who, are wandering out into private property. I mean, I know of one person who almost got shot in Texas because they were on private land, and they were wandering around trying to collect, again, certain things in certain games. And the property owner, they're pretty trigger happy in Texas, my home state. So, they're looking for that. But I don't know of any specifically. And then you were going to.
They don't have their own, what is this, jokamiehen oikeudet in English, like every man's rights. That you can go to any property in Finland and you can pick mushrooms or berries for free and they cannot stop you. So it's not trespassing, actually. It's in the law. Yeah, but I was actually saying about the valorizing the digital footprint of the real estate, or you should have let's go back to the place, or the basically, once we have an architect who designs a building, it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, he made it in paper and submitted the paper to the person who owns the building. He owns the plan, basically. So it converted to PDF a couple years back, and the PDF was converted to, it was submitted alongside with the building. But nowadays we are in the world that once you design a building, you get the BIM model of it, basically. So you have a very precise information, what's where and how it is built, and where the pipe goes and where your security cameras are, how do you enter, and how many people are actually there. So this information has never been valorized. The information system for the, building information model, basically development stops immediately when the building is built. And that's it. And nobody really has put a price on it. So instead we think about the price of the properties or the value of the properties that we have. We should have the physical layer, then we should have the virtual layer, but we haven't really put any money on it. How much does it cost?
Ooh, that would be interesting to see if, like, in the permitting process, you could say, you know, as the owner, I want this to be a dead zone, and so somehow at least you're covered that way. So if someone does decide to violate your space with some kind of digital content, there would be some form of enforcement that could be there, right? That might somehow.
True, but I think that you have to actually collaborate and have approvals from the state who gives you the permit to build. So there are spaces you cannot go, like for example the embassies, and they are not very particular. They're very weird places actually in the cities. And there are some places that you're not allowed to go, basically, you know, defense forces and so on. But most likely, wherever you go, you can go, and you're not allowed to stop people wandering around in them.
Well, see, and I think that's one of the beauties here in Finland. You know, I know that, for example, like, so going back to the U.S., right, you have in Florida and these places stand your ground. So if you go on that person's land to pick berries or pick mushrooms, if they perceive that you are a threat, they can shoot and kill you with no explanation. With no explanation and no consequence to that, right? So yes, things work very well here, but it's interesting to see as those things scale how we can adjust, right, and how to do it right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how is mixed reality going to influence architectural design, since we're there now, and what changes can we expect in our sort of built environment?
Well, if I can start, as VTT, we have been quite active on collecting people around this area nowadays, and we just created a plan and submit to the funder. I hope we get funded for that project to conceptualize metaverse readiness and what it would mean in architectural wise. And it might mean quite a lot of difference. Of course, it means different thing in factory, where the factory workers are doing a completely different thing. But like if you go to a house where there are like offices, it might mean that you have to have, you know, connectivity way better than it's now, or you know, have virtual reality step in. How can you plug and play yourself in a metaverse, for example?
In my opinion, it's all about designing of data. Desilo, desilo, desilo. Today, these processes are in different buckets, cut into different phases, and oftentimes the natural point of organization really is in the overall view of the data, in that back and forth real-time reflection of what's actually happening during the design process, during the project management process, and then subsequently going to the build process, and how this information flow back and forth to improve efficiency, improve sustainability of these buildings. So first and foremost, I'm like a broken record. I am all about designing of data as a first step to use mixed reality in improving in addressing some of the very obvious issues within the built environment construction industry, that communication element, organizing that communication, making it more real-time, more reactive, and less costly down the line when you're making changes.
Well, and I would like to say that, you know, it's interesting to see what's happening now. I mean, if anyone, again, audience poll, how many people saw Google I/O's keynote this year? Okay, so for those that didn't, they showed an example of what's going on with immersive maps. So the idea is that you have this, the 2D that you have like in Google Maps to show you how to get there. And then they showed how that can very quickly go into 3D. They already have the live view feature, which adds AR. But then what was also interesting is that in the 3D space, so think of Google Earth, but then they started showing cars, they started showing rain, right? All of this data that they collected. So it really is like this digital twin. So that's what's interesting is to see is how now information, as George was saying, that sits in all these different places is being able to come together to help us have better understanding of space, what's going on there, right? You know, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what is interactive 3D worth, right? So that's where it is happening. I just want to see, and where I'm very optimistic about Finland, and where I can see that they set the precedent for the rest of the world, because you know, a lot of the building standards like IFC, which is essentially the HTML of 3D, you know, building information. It was started here in Finland, right? This is a worldwide standard that is used to define building data that started here, right? And there's a lot of things here. So I feel that if there is the non-Google open source, perhaps it's the web, but you know, something that is accessible for all and not controlled by the tech giants, I'm very optimistic that it can happen here. And that's why we are here as a company. You know, people said, didn't you go backwards? You went from Silicon Valley to Finland to start a company. Right? And that's where, you know, but this is why, you know, again, I believe very much that it will be done here for the rest of the world.
25 minutes goes really fast, and I have 25 other questions on here. So you know what, we're gonna turn it to the audience for one or two questions, and then but before we do, make sure you have the mic in your hand, and then there's gonna be plenty of time. Our speakers are gonna stick around and stay during networking, but we'll take one, two questions, and then yeah, please
make them good.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for a very good discussion, and thank you for the keynotes also. It's very, very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, Tuija, you mentioned that we are good in building regulation, which we are in the EU, and actually the data protection laws already before GDPR, I think back in 2011 or something like that, were originally put in place for like big tech to be allowed to emerge also in the EU. So we tried to do that through regulation. Was that smart or not? I don't know. But yeah, having said that, would now Metaverse or mixed reality be an opportunity for EU to disrupt the market enough so that a tech giant could emerge here somewhere? If so, where in mixed reality or Metaverse would the opportunity be?
Let me take that, just really quick.
Please.
I don't think it's one big tech giant. I think it's one big tech ecosystem that has to address this issue in the most Eurocentric way. Collaboration is the way, because the resources is simply not there to compete on simply money. And therefore, I think it is all about building an infrastructure on which competition and differing solutions can happen on a smaller scale, but on a much wider level across the tech ecosystem. So really, it's not one company. It's many, many, many companies.
So no new Nokia?
Nokia can play a part in that, but there will be one amongst many. There will be a really big one, though. We love to work with Nokia, by the way.
Actually, when thinking about Nokia and their rise in 90s, it was very exceptional in that sense that also state was very much involved with it, because it invested a lot of money on it, and the ground to kind of start all over due to a recession time and due to collapse of Soviet Union, then we had to kind of rewire our brains basically to rethink, like, how do we do trade in this country? So therefore the state was in it to invest a lot of money. And I actually see personally that, well, in built environment sector we are not doing that good now in Finland, so it would be a very good place to basically put money on investment to kind of how to do actually think about buildings nowadays. Is it the normal linear way, or should we think somehow exponentially? But yes, there will be no new Nokia probably, and I believe in the ecosystem thing as well, or there might be like a stronger ones and smaller ones, but they have to collaborate, and this is why European Union basically, or the countries in the European Union bloom, is the collaboration.
Yeah, I mean the question emerged from bad conscience because I worked for Apple when the iPhone was introduced, so yeah. But hey, thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take one more. All the way in the back. Got some waving hands there.
Yeah, you're gonna make her work.
Yeah. That's it's part of her steps.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you all for the great speech. I was just wondering, I don't know about everybody else, but I personally feel that Web3 and the Metaverse and AI, everything still feels a lot like no man's land. It's scary, but it's very interesting. And I know you touched upon the topic of private property and the digital space, but I was wondering, what kind of steps do you think we as like individuals need to take to protect our own image? Because it's a known fact that there is deep fakes and AI generating adult content with actresses and nude photography of whoever you upload a picture of. So how do you think we go about that?
First thing I'd say is read your terms of service. Use ChatGPT to simplify what that actually does. I think there was a great Black Mirror episode that came out that called like "What is Wrong with Joan" or something like that. I don't know if anyone in here has seen that. Joan is awful. Thank you. Okay, and this is a great example of that, because how many people in here read the entire terms of service? Raise your hand. Exactly. Okay, so I don't know what the answer is, but I would say that would probably be the first start, from my opinion.
And the other part is that you asked that question. You have awareness of that you have to be on your toes and you have to look for it, and you're kind of you know that there's might be a trick there or here. But I think the people who are in this room, our responsibility is to convey that same message and that awareness and critical ability to read and observe world to our generation Z, G, next generations, our kids. So basically the values, what are we carrying, we have to put that to the next generation, so they won't be learning to click OK for those terms. So they would actually have the opportunity to be critical. Is it really something that I want to go after? Is this really something that I need?
The privacy TikTok dance.
Yeah.
I think I like to answer that in two different ways. One way is there really needs to be a declaration of your right as an individual to the privacy of your data, like a really strong statement, maybe on a national level, that everybody, at least in the nation, can agree upon. Then you can make policies around. But it's not all about policy making, as we know, because people will try to sneak stuff in. So for the risk of sounding like a technocrat, my personal perspective is turn their weapon against them. For example, there is now the concept of personal defensive AIs that essentially go and, using the power of AI, actually act for you in simplifying and digesting all of that data down to a form that you can understand and can better advise you on how to do so. And any company that currently is thinking about this are likely to be some of the most successful companies, like any antivirus companies for your operating system, right? But now it's more about the virus of people trying to invade on your privacy, but you're actually taking some technological steps to really aid you in turning their weapons, or at least making you compete on a more even level. So while this sounding very technical, I think there is some component of this that is going to become more and more relevant as we move into a much more AI-intensive, Web3 intensive, and data-intensive world, as we already are, but it will go exponential from this point on.
Well, and just in closing on that, do check out the work of a woman named Britton Heller. And so this is an attorney, Harvard educated, things like that. And so she's fighting for how human rights and rights in the real world translate to the digital.
Yep.
So she has some amazing examples of this. So I would say, definitely follow her work. A lot to learn there, really, for anyone who's curious about these things. Because, one case, just for example, I know we're running short on time, but I want to share, is that since most VR publishers don't understand how the brain works, right? When you're looking at something on the screen, your brain stores it as an experience. When you're in VR, your brain stores it as a memory. And so there was a woman who, I think it was last year or the year before, that she had one of these Tesla suits on that registers all of, wherever it's touching, and essentially was groped in VR. And so her brain stored that as essentially a sexual assault, right? She has PTSD. And so in Britain, this is one of those cases of where they're trying to figure out how do those things translate. So definitely follow her work. It's very fascinating.
Good tips.
I promised that I would end on this question, so
Okay.
so we're gonna rapid fire, quick. Okay, the quickest answer that you could give me here. So, if all the required technology for the metaverse were suddenly to become available today, legislative protections become paramount. So, what legal safeguards do you believe would be immediately instituted to ensure user protection? Quick.
Turning off the internet. Yeah, we severed that cable ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say similarly, being able to truly unplug 100%.
Yep.
Being able to have the opportunity to shut everything down. That is actually a very good answer. It's 3 both from us to that.
Perfect. Hey, let's give a huge round of applause. Huge round. Thank you so much. You're going to stay on stage with me, but please, if you would go, Paulina will take your mic off for you.
Thank you.
Okay, how was that? Good. All right, so there's going to be food. Don't worry, I didn't just feed you popcorn and M&Ms. There's some pizza in the back once we're done with this portion here. But Damon is going to just give a quick example of what's going on next.
Yeah, super. So just to let everyone know, so to give an example of what's going on with the web technologies, what we have over here is one Mozilla Hub's world. So this is a browser-based solution that you can access by scanning the QR codes on your mobile device, okay? Now, we have found that you'll probably need to open that link in a browser. If you open it up in your camera browser, it may not work. But to illustrate, again, the power of web technology. So you can either experience this world by, like I said, scanning the QR codes that are around. You can come and then experience it either here on the laptop, or again, I don't think anyone's going to do VR with the amount of data that will be collected on you. But if you would like, Lagoy, who is actually an architect who has started to implement immersive technology, so very relevant for the built environment sector, will be able to help you by going through the browsers in the headsets. So again, and this goes back to that idea of accessibility, right? It's not just about VR. It's about coming in from whatever device you have. So that's the demos that we have. I would probably say try it out with the mobile phone. And then I would just ask, because we are using the free version of this, it limits to 20 people. So when you are done, actually close that browser tab out. Because if you just, like go to a different app, it's still going to have you logged in. So feel free to experience that if you would like.
Perfect. Let's give Damon a huge round of applause.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Stick with me for just 2 seconds while I shamelessly plug the next few events that we have coming on here at Epicenter. So as I mentioned, we're a community. We're really proud of the fact that we host events just like this once a week here at Epicenter Helsinki. So the next couple of events that we have coming up, on the 28th, so next Thursday, our tech series returns. This is a monthly event where we look into various tech industries. On September 28th, we're going to turn our attention to fintech, but more specifically, open banking. So banking is revolutionizing the financial world, offering unparalleled opportunities for innovation, collaboration, and customer empowerment. But with great potential comes great complexes. Come with us as we dive into the fast evolving landscape of fintech and open banking. And on the 3rd, our Afterwork series is back. This month's theme will be focused on founder stories. So come be inspired by local founders who will share their journeys, hear the good, the bad, and all the in-between. And then on the 10th, Hired is a series that we work on when we're looking at local talent. And on the 10th, we're going to do an event in conjunction with AmCham, who is a member of Epicenter, called Closing Doors and Opening Opportunities. And we're decoding Finland's strategy for international talent. So Finland will be the most interesting place to invest by 2031. This was a worthy and ambitious goal set out by the new Finnish government formed in June 2023. Epicenter and AmCham are joining together to ask the governments how the government's approach to international talent supports this vision. The panel of government officials and business leaders will discuss 4 main areas. How will the local entrepreneurial system be impacted? How will foreign direct investment be impacted? How will individual people be impacted? And how overall will Finland be impacted? And really great speakers lined up for that as well. So I hope that you enjoyed yourself today, because I certainly enjoyed being here. And like I mentioned, panelists are going to stay to have a few chats. There should be pizza in the back now. Bar is open. I'm Joey. Thank you all so much. Thank you.